Hello, I'm Michael Popove. Coming up on Week in Review, a surprise twist in the trial of a man accused in the first-degree murder of a Medicine Hat boy. As well, it's one of the biggest blows to the local economy in years as Halliburton closes up shop. We'll have those stories and more on Week in Review.
From the Broadcast Center in Medicine Hat, in high definition, this is Chat News Week in Review.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin this week with every family's worst nightmare, a tragic ending to an accident that took place early Wednesday morning. A young girl between the ages of 8 and 12 was killed after being struck by a vehicle in the driveway of her home in the Ranchlands area of the city. Police say one vehicle was involved in the fatal accident that took place on Terrace Close Northeast around 8:30 in the morning. Police are not releasing any names. However, they have confirmed a relative of the child was driving the vehicle at the time. Police say the accident is still under investigation.
We have to take a look at all the evidence that we have. That requires examining the measurements, photographs of the scene, and other evidence that was available to us today. And as well, there's going to be an autopsy at some point, and we'll have to attend to that. So it's a matter of examining all the evidence and making a decision after we've had a chance to analyze it as well.
There's lots of families around here, so it's very family-oriented. A lot of the families are younger families with little kids, and a lot of the people around here are really nice.
An arson investigation is now underway following an early morning blaze at a home on Cameron Drive. Firefighters received the call around 2 in the morning on Thursday, and as you can see, fire causing extensive damage to the home to the tune of approximately $200,000. Everyone inside the house at the time managed to escape without injuries. Fortunately, neighboring homes were spared damage from the blaze. Police are releasing few details about the arson investigation that's in its very early stages.
At this time, we have nobody in custody. You can imagine there's a lot of people that we need to speak to at this point. So right now, investigators are gathering that information, measuring that against the evidence that we have, and we'll move forward in the next few hours and days.
A twist this week in the murder trial of a man accused of killing a 2-year-old Medicine Hat boy. TJ Heller entered a surprise guilty plea to second-degree murder this past Monday. The plea comes on what was supposed to be day one of his first-degree murder trial, which was set to last 4 weeks in front of a judge and jury. Now, after Heller decided to proceed by judge alone, the potential jurors were dismissed. The Southern Alberta man was charged after the toddler was critically injured back in 2011. Heller made a 911 call claiming the boy had fallen down the stairs more than a week earlier. And as you'll hear from the call, the child was suffering from visible injuries.
And then ever since then, he's kind of been like showing signs of like his arm was like, you know, kind of can't use his one arm. And then he's kind of bleeding out of the one ear. And his bruising has just showed up like bad. According to agreed statement of facts presented in court, Heller was not being accurate on that 911 call or to paramedics who were on the scene. An autopsy revealed the little boy died from multiple blunt force trauma and had extensive injuries all over his body. Chat News spoke with the boy's father on Monday, who had a message he felt compelled to share.
My son had a long life ahead of him when it got taken, and I wish things could be different, and I just hope that families take a closer look at people before they let them into their lives, so what happened to my son never ever has to happen to anybody ever again.
Now, Heller will automatically receive a life sentence. However, his eligibility for parole is expected to be contested at a sentence hearing at the end of May. After several delays, the sexual assault trial of a former Medicine Hat massage therapist got underway this week. Harris Sawtik is facing 8 counts stemming from allegations made by 6 different female clients. The 34-year-old Sawtik was charged back in 2011 after some of his clients at the Alberta Massage and Spa came forward to police. The court hearing this week, similar testimony from the 6 women involving alleged inappropriate touching. However, some of the witnesses testified they had their eyes closed and couldn't be sure where Sawtik was directing their hands to touch. One of the last females to testify claims that when Sawtik began massaging the inside of her thigh, he touched her inappropriately with her fingers. He said she sat up right away, stopping the massage, saying, "We're done." A police officer also testified this week and was questioned at length over evidence testing. Softic was arrested at work, and so his uniform and underwear were confiscated by police. Result of a semen detection test came back positive. However, the officer said it wasn't conclusive, and the substance could be a number of fluids, bodily or otherwise. The case has been adjourned, as it will be back in court this week to set up a date for continuation. The lawyer for the man accused of the second-degree murder of a former college student, Amy Lewis, says he expects a trial will likely take between 2 weeks to a month to complete. Jerison Stepanski made his first appearance in Court of Queen's Bench this past Thursday. His lawyer was granted an adjournment after telling the judge that new information has come to light and that he needs more time to go through it. Stepanski's next court date is scheduled for April the 18th. Defense counsel said previously that Stepanski wants a trial by judge alone, and they're hoping it'll start sometime in the fall. The 35-year-old is charged in the second-degree murder of the missing nursing student. Amy Lewis disappeared last June. Her body has yet to be found. All right, stay tuned. Coming up after the break, first, ADM announced it's moving its Medicine Hat operation. Now, Halliburton says it's closing up shop as well. That story and more coming up on Week in Review. Welcome back to a Week in Review. It's one of the biggest blows to the Medicine Hat economy in a number of years. And for a community known as the Gas City, news that Halliburton is closing its local operation hits especially close to home. Chat News requested a phone interview with the Houston-based company this week. That request was denied. Communications staff in Texas did, however, send us a statement on Tuesday. The email confirms the meeting the company had with employees, including the options that Halliburton is providing for them. So far, no employee layoffs. Company workers have instead been given the choice of relocating to other Halliburton operations or accepting a buyout package and then being out of a job. Reading from a portion of the statement, the company says, quote, "It appears the base is moving to Regina as most of its business is now concentrated in southeast Saskatchewan and southwest Manitoba," unquote. Part of the negative spin-off from the Halliburton announcement this week concerns the other local businesses in the area that have come to rely on the energy giant. Now, we know Trax Bus Lines was the company hired to transfer the Medicine Hat employees to work in Saskatchewan. Halliburton was also one of Century Velen's bigger customers. Neither business wished to comment publicly on Tuesday. As far as the economic impact, there is 200 employees, many with families. The question is, how much do these people have invested into the community, both personally and financially? Alderman Ted Cluxton called the news devastating for the city. However, he also points out the service companies need to go where the work is, saying even the city of Medicine Hat has stopped drilling for shallow gas.
For gas anymore because we cannot make a go of it. The returns do not make sense at this price. So all this activity is now because of this revolution in shale gas.
The effects of the provincial budget that was delivered just over 2 weeks ago are already being felt by local school boards across the province. Now, here in Medicine Hat, School District number 76 released its impact summary of how cuts to education funding may affect operations this year. The district will see a modest 2% increase in funding to help address the class size issue. There will be a $256,000 clawback to administration costs, while base grants will be frozen for the next 3 years. The impact of funding cuts to the public board are expected to be $2.1 million this year. The board secretary-treasurer says it's a number big enough that steps will have to be taken to address the shortfall.
We'll reach out to our high schools, or all our schools, should I say, and consult with them and talk to them about the impact, the dollars, and decide how best to implement those rollbacks. Will it affect the classroom? That's yet to be seen. The number is big enough that it certainly has the potential to.
Some school boards across the province this week were having a difficult time deciding whether or not to endorse the province's tentative agreement with its 35,000 teachers. That wasn't the case locally, as the public board here in Medicine Hat voting unanimously this week to ratify the framework agreement reached between the province and the ATA. Some boards in Alberta are worried that the agreement could still lead to larger class sizes and teacher layoffs. The tentative deal will see wages frozen for the first 3 years of the contract. There will be a 2% increase for teachers in the final year with a one-time lump sum payment. It also caps the amount of instructional time at 907 hours per year. That number is what the chair of District 76 is saying the public board has been working with for the last 30 years.
The framework agreement outlining the wage concerns and the process of instructional time, that eliminates the most contentious issues to deal with at the local level, and that is why our board ratified it.
The Edmonton Public School Board voted on Tuesday not to support the tentative agreement, saying that it is bad for students. The proposed outdoor smoking ban issue was back before City Council this week. The bylaw was referred back to committee by the aldermen. However, it was handed right back to Council last week without a single change being made. And this past Monday, Council passed the first reading of the motion by a 7-1 margin. The bylaw looking to prohibit outdoor smoking in public spaces was initially put forward in Council in January. However, City Councillors referred the matter back to the committee for further discussion and possible amendments. No such changes were made. Committee members said last week this is a matter that needs to be debated before the public in an open session. As a result of this week's votes, residents will now have their chance to weigh in on the issue.
What happens next is second reading will take place on April the 1st, and at that particular point in time, the public is free to present their views to City Council, and after that, vote will be taking place on second reading. If it passes that night, it will be third reading on April the 1st.
The police have more to do than to worry about the fact that you could be smoking if you're walking down the street beside a playground. I agree with not smoking in restaurants. I agree with not smoking in theatres and hospitals, and I know it's offensive to some people, but how far do you want to go?
This week, Money Sense magazine has released its annual rankings of the best places to live in Canada. The report takes into account 12 different factors, including everything from the number of family doctors available to property taxes, even the number of days the temperature remains above zero. Calgary, coming in at number 1 in the entire country, in all 5 Alberta cities placed in the top 10, including Lethbridge at number 9. Ontario received 4 top 10 spots, while BC, the only other province in that group, Saanich placing 7th. Medicine Hat did well overall, finishing in 27th spot, while Brooks placed 83rd out of 200. Breaking down the local area numbers, it's not good news at all for Brooks when it comes to family doctors. The town finished dead last in the number of GPs available, with less than a half a doctor per 1,000 residents. Medicine Hat is in the top half of that list with over 1.75 doctors per 1,000 residents, while Lethbridge has almost 2. Maybe a bit of a surprise to see Lethbridge listed at the lowest of the 3 centres in our area in the average household income category. The Windy City listed at $82,600 a year per household, while Brooks is almost $95,000 per year. And all 3 centres did well in the jobless rate. Medicine Hat came in at just a touch over 4%. Now, to view the entire report, we've posted a link online at our website at www.chattelevision.ca. Alberta's official opposition is rejecting a pay hike given to all MLAs last year, saying the money will instead go to charity. Wildrose leader Danielle Smith says all 17 members of her caucus are accepting no more than $145,000 per year. That's how much provincial politicians were making before the government increased their compensation by 8% to $156,000. Local MLA Drew Barnes says no one in the legislature deserves the money because no one campaigned on it in last year's election.
The whole idea behind it was that we didn't campaign, we didn't door knock on an 8% raise. The PCs didn't either, so we felt it was wrong when they gave all the MLAs this raise. So we felt that this was a better way to do something with it rather than accept the raise.
The question going into Thursday's federal budget was, will the Conservatives be able to cut the deficit while at the same time grow a slowing economy? The Finance Minister Jim Flaherty has spent weeks telling Canadians not to expect anything too drastic in the way of changes. So after submitting the blueprint for Canada's economic future, Flaherty seems to at least kept his promise. Ottawa is planning less than $1 billion in new spending. That means 1% increase is less than that of the rate of inflation. While the budget holds the line on new spending, there are no new taxes or tax increases. The Conservatives say they're looking to generate $400 million more in revenue per year, among other ways, by closing tax loopholes and cracking down on tax fraud. This year's deficit is pegged at $18.7 billion. The government's #1 priority in the new budget is the new $500 million Canada Jobs Grant program that's focused on skills and development. $47 billion has been allocated for infrastructure, and that's something Alberta's finance minister was happy to see.
The federal budget model affirms Alberta's approach to living within our means, and that includes holding the line on spending. But at the same time, like Alberta, they're continuing to invest in infrastructure So we're pleased to see the Building Canada program extended for another 10 years. This will be of great benefit to municipalities, especially Alberta's fast-growing communities.
And staying with the budget, the federal government has introduced tariff relief on some imported goods that will have an effect for young families here in our area of the province. Tariffs on baby clothing and sporting gear have been eliminated with the expectation that suppliers and retailers will then pass the savings on to consumers. As Yvonne Raymond explains, it could keep some shoppers from crossing the border while making sports that are expensive to participate in more accessible.
4-year-old Stian has been working all season to catch his footing on skates. Once he hits the blue line, his grandpa rewards him with a speedy lap. Stian is just one of thousands of Canadian kids learning the basics of one of the country's most beloved sports, and soon his family could be rewarded with cheaper prices for equipment.
Anytime anything goes down in price, it's good news.
Right now, many imported goods are slapped with a tariff of up to 20%, but the federal finance minister's Economic Action Plan of 2013 is to eliminate those tariffs.
You might see some extra kids coming in to play hockey, and we always want to see more kids playing in the sports in Medicine Hat, because I'm a firm believer in the sporting world that if they're in the rinks and playing sports, they're less likely to get in trouble.
The move doesn't just apply to hockey gear. The tariff on baby clothing will drop from roughly 18% to 0% on April 1st. Skis and snowboards are also on the list, alongside golf clubs and other exercise equipment. It's news Source for Sports has been lobbying to see.
What we were asking for is you need to make it an even playing field for us, because otherwise, people want to go across border.
This will help narrow that price gap between Canada and the U.S. on certain products.
Allows us to be more competitive that way. So we are very excited about this.
Meaning a new pair of skates could be slightly more manageable to fund in our own backyard. Yvonne Raymond, Chat News.
All right, please do stay tuned. There's still more to come after the break as a fully grown Bernese Mountain Dog gets stuck in a tree. That story and more coming up on Week in Review. Welcome back to A Week in Review. The popularity of tattoos has grown by leaps and bounds over the past few years. As the culture is becoming more mainstream with its own magazines and reality TV shows, more and more people are deciding to adorn their bodies with the permanent markings. And as Ryan Flaherty reports, the success of the inaugural Gas City Tattoo show proves that unlike the ink on people's skin, the negative image of the culture is beginning to fade away.
Maureen Shepard is about to get inked for the very first time.
I'm excited because I've wanted it for a year, but kind of scared.
The decision to get a permanent piece of art on her skin was not a hasty one for the Lomond resident, though she wasn't the only one who needed convincing.
10 out of my family members got it, and my husband didn't want me to, and it's taken me this long to talk him into it.
To get her first tattoo, Shepard's come to the first ever Gas City Tattoo Show. Artists from across Canada are here, but there's plenty of emphasis on Medicine Hat's bustling tattoo scene.
The tattoo community here is huge. I mean, the city thrives on tattoos. I'm sure it has for a long time, but there's lots of tattooing going on here.
Monty Ricken is one of the many local artists with a booth here. He sees a number of factors that make the Gas City a hub for artists and the people who sport their work.
That whole working ethic in the community, motorcycle enthusiasts, it all kind of, lends itself to making the tattoo industry in Medicine Hat as big as it is.
Though tattoos have become more popular in recent years, there's still a stigma that they are symbolic of a rough lifestyle or a criminal background. But the show's organizer says conventions like this prove that false.
We've got kids, we've got families. It's not just the criminal element, it's everybody comes to these because everybody gets tattooed. My doctor gets tattooed, my dentist has a tattoo.
And then there's the Enigma. He's covered with the work of more than 200 different artists.
There's always those kids, and kids come in all shapes and sizes, even big ugly ones. They want to see the strange, the bizarre, and the unusual. And nowadays, it's the tattoo convention.
The Enigma is the extreme end of what's become a more mainstream subculture. Though others share his passion for the surreal, many are more like Maureen Shepard.
It's probably a one-time thing. I'm not going to be tattoo crazy like our daughter.
And much like her new ink, a convention like this could soon become a permanent fixture in Medicine Hat. Ryan Flaherty, Chat News.
And finally this week, this is not something you see every day. Last week, bylaw officers were dispatched to a call about a dog stuck in a tree. Arrow, a Bernese mountain dog, is apparently known to climb the tree on a regular basis, and his owner says he loves to sleep in it. Bylaw officials and firefighters had to use the jaws of life to remove the dog after he became wedged between two branches. As he was being freed, the big guy excitedly leaned forward and fell out from the tree from about 9 feet above the ground. Good news, however, as he landed uninjured and undeterred, as a few days later, he was right back up in his favorite spot.
We weren't exactly sure what we would get when we got there. I was greeted by a big dog stuck in a tree. His head was stuck between two big limbs of the tree, and had two collars on, one cloth and one chain. And there's no way this head would come out of the tree limbs.
I guess he just thought he could climb a little higher. I don't know if he'd get a better view or why he went up higher, but he got up a little too high and got his head stuck in the branches.
That's a great story. That is your Weekend Review. Please be sure to join us weekdays for the Chat News at noon, 5:30, 6:30, and 11. And as we leave you tonight, the sights and sounds of Juno Award winner Sherry Ulrich performing at the Paradise Valley Golf Course. Thank you for watching and enjoy your weekend, everyone.
With the weight of the world on my shoulders, I got a job, I got the kids, a never longer someday list. I've got worries, I've got debt, I never seem to catch my breath.